Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellbite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to comment on summoner spells for the top lane. Now it used to be the case where back in the day, Teleport Flash was the only combination you would ever see on a top laner in any given game. That was just considered to be the objectively correct choices. Teleport was regarded as essential to help regulate mistakes in lane or to provide map pressure from the island that is top lane, and Flash is just generally regarded as a must-take summoner spell even to this day. However, in recent years, there's been a slow trend of players moving away from Teleport and Flash as the must-take spells, resulting in some new summoner spells showing up in top lane. As a result, I wanted to cover the most commonly seen summoner spells showing up in the top lane and discuss their relative merits, their strengths and weaknesses, as well as give advice about which summoner spells you should be taking in your own games should you find yourself in the top lane. Now, in case I haven't made it clear, I do have a very brief caveat here. I'm only talking about top lane. Obviously, situations are going to be different in different lanes and on different champions. This is talking about the top lane specifically and some of the more common options. I'm not going to discuss every summoner spell in the game. That would be redundant, but generally what you're seeing in top lane most of the time. So let's go ahead and talk about the still de facto #1 summoner spell you see in the top lane, which is Teleport. This is the OG summoner spell of choice because it's a staple of the lane due to how much power it provides. Teleport provides you with global map influence. Top lane can often be an island where two champions just duke it out irrespective of the rest of the game, and as a result, Teleport can help open this up, allowing top laners to assist their team when they're needed the most. Post 12 minutes, any allied ward, minion, or structure can represent you as a threat to the enemy team, provided your teleport is off cooldown. This is a very powerful place to be. Enemy champions know, hey, if there's a ward in that side brush, we can't push up past that if the teleport is available. Hey, if we're trying to go for this dive, is the top laner's teleport available? Because they can be here. Hey, are we trying to push past the minion wave to go in under tower against champions? Well, the top laner can be behind us. That's a very powerful place for a summoner spell to be, and it allows champions to have global pressure that they otherwise would not have. Teleport also is one of the biggest enablers in macro plays. Related to the earlier point, Teleport enables a suite of macro plays that no other summoner spell can. Split pushing bot lane while your team threatens Baron is a classic example of this. If the enemy team has no teleport available, they can't send someone to stop you from split pushing without also risking a 4v5 scenario after you TP in to join the fight. This is a very powerful play that you can make, and there are all sorts of different versions of this play that you can opt into if you have teleport available, and as a result, there are these macro plays that you can really only opt into if you have teleport available without picking specific champions like Shen. Teleport can even help you out in a losing lane matchup. As mentioned before, top lane can oftentimes be an island, and as a result, you can count on much less support from your team, even if you're into a counter pick or just a general tough matchup. Teleport is a huge boon in this regard. Being able to lose a trade or give up a kill, and then being able to teleport back into lane to miss a minimum of golden experience is huge for helping to stabilize a lane that otherwise would be much rougher. Consider you go top lane without teleport, you get into a bad trade, you die, they shove under tower, you're denied an entire wave of golden experience, you finally respawn, you have to start walking back top lane, they get back at the same time as you now that they've bought their items off of killing you, and the tough lane only got tougher. In a converse matchup where they don't have teleport, for example, the same thing happens, you still die, but you teleport back to lane after respawning. You're catching most of the wave that they just shoved in. You're there to immediately begin shoving the other wave. If they stuck around, they haven't had the opportunity to go back and buy any gold. You have the opportunity to bounce a wave off their tower while they're resetting. This is a very powerful ability for you to help get back in the game, and it's something that only teleport is allowing you to do. However, there are some cons to teleport. First, it's a non-combat summoner spell. Unlike basically every other summoner in the game, it has no applications once combat has begun. You can't even really use it to run away because of the channel time. As a result, you're dependent on your play alone to carry the day, and you have no help from external systems outside of things like items. This also means that opponents with combat summoner spells will have an edge against you in a straight-up fight, which potentially forces you to use teleport as a backup plan. But more damningly, teleport requires macro knowledge to get the most out of. This isn't a flame per se, but most League of Legends players are really bad at macro. They don't know what objectives are coming up, they don't know when to show themselves on the map, they don't know when or how to split push, and as a result, them having teleport doesn't mean that they automatically get to do the big macro flanks. It just means that, yeah, they probably use it in the first couple of minutes of the game to teleport back and forth to lane and during laning phase, and then after that, they use it to, I don't know, I guess teleport top lane to catch a wave that they otherwise would have missed. Like, that's fine, but it's definitely not worth a summoner spell slot. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and talk about the second runner-up that I've been seeing a lot of, which is Ignite. Ignite has been steadily creeping up in popularity over the last few years, and even replacing Teleport entirely for some players as their summoner spell of choice top lane. It has a lot of obvious advantages here, most notably its offensive power in the early game. Its low cooldown, coupled with its extra damage and grievous wounds, makes it exceptionally powerful at giving players an edge in these early fights. This is especially pronounced on certain lane bullies. It's already hard enough to lane into a Renekton, but a Renekton with Ignite is even worse because it can just kind of kill you out of nowhere with the extra damage that button provides. Given that top lane is an island, you often win or lose lane on your own merits, so why not take the best summoner spell in business for duels? Ignite can also be a flex pick against specific high healing targets. If you're a champion that doesn't want to index into grievous wounds items such as Executioner's Calling, you may have more flexibility in your summoner spell choices than in your items. This isn't going to be relevant against everyone, but against some champions like Dr. Mundo or Vladimir, Ignite will be a very powerful tool for you to have in the early stages of the game where you won't have a Grievous Wounds item available. However, Ignite does have a bunch of very notable weaknesses, first of which is its lack of utility. It provides nothing except damage. The Grievous Wounds aren't always going to be relevant in every matchup, and the amount of damage may not matter based on how the game is going. This also means that if you fall behind, Ignite is doing nothing for you for the rest of the game. It's a dead summoner spell. It's not helping you to counterbalance the lane, it's not doing an appreciable amount of damage, they're fighting you regardless. Like, what is it doing for you? Literally nothing. You're just doing a bit of extra true damage while you're dying. That's really about it, though, for Ignite, so let's go ahead and talk about the third main choice that I see in the top lane, which is Ghost. In recent times, Ghost has been getting picked up on a bunch of different champions. Normally, it's been seen on champions before, like Olaf, but even more champions are indexing into it now. But let's talk about the pros for it. First up, its long duration opens up new playmaking opportunities. It lasts 15 seconds as of this writing. That means it's really hard to get away from a champion who's ghosting after you without going through a wall and hoping they don't also have flash or also have a mobility spell. The ramp up time does give some opportunity for a champion to get out of the way when they see that you popped Ghost, but you have a full 15 seconds to wait. You can let it ramp up in Fog of War and then come sprinting out at them from Fog of War, which doesn't leave a lot of time to react, and you still have plenty of time to make use of its bonus movement speed to stick to champions. Flash's instant burst of mobility can be reacted to with a flash of your own, which usually ends in the play ending, but with Ghost, flashing away doesn't get you to safety immediately because of that lengthy duration, allowing you to just kind of stick with someone and say, I don't care, I'll kill you later, but you're still gonna die. Ghost also helps address some champion weaknesses. Champions like Darius or Garen are particularly vulnerable to being kited, and Flash only goes so far, right? If you flash at someone right into a Morgana binding, you're just dead in the water, right? Like, it's over for you. The play is done. You're going to have to walk off in shame if you can walk off at all. Ghost's long duration and increased movement speed, however, let these champs gap close more reliably. Even if you eat a crowd control ability, you may have enough time left on your Ghost to still be able to close the gap on your preferred targets. This also means that you have some inevitability. Again, Flash will only get you so far, and unless you're going over a wall, Ghost is going to get you in range to deal with them. Ghost is also a pseudo-mobility summoner spell, which means that being flashless can be less of a problem if you're substituting Ghost. Oftentimes, Ghost is showing up as a flash replacement on champions that already have good mobility, like Gwen. These champions may get more value out of Ghost's long duration and movement speed than Flash's instant teleport for this reason, and as a result, it can show up on these champions every so often. However, there are some disadvantages to Ghost as well. First, it has no real utility, similar to Ignite. It can be useful in extended plays or during flanks, but it won't always be exceptionally useful. Falling behind especially can turn Ghost into an exclusively run-away tool, which is just a niche that Flash does much better most of the time. And Ghost only grants movement speed. This is mostly in relation to its to Flash, but it can't go through walls, and is just as susceptible to slows as any other run-at-them ability is. Though Ghost can be used as a pseudo-map mobility spell, it's much worse than teleport in this niche, and it doesn't give you any real combat power. If you don't want to be next to the enemy champion at all, Ghost isn't doing anything for you in the same way that Ignite would, right? If you're just two big bruisey guys beating the crap out of each other, Ignite is going to be way more useful for you than Ghost. Ghost lets you get into the fight faster, I guess, but if you both have to be in melee range, it doesn't really matter. Finally, a note here on Flash. I don't really need to extol you with the virtues of Flash in this video. It is the strongest summoner spell in the game, objectively, by the way, you guys, for a reason, but I did want to comment on the wisdom of replacing Flash with another summoner spell in the top lane. For example, going Teleport or Ignite, or Teleport and Ghost. Flash is the most powerful summoner spell because you are going to always get value out of what it enables, and opting out of it opens you up to specific weaknesses. For example, your dash is on cooldown so you can't get away, even though, you know, because you don't have Flash, which would be off cooldown at this moment. You're out of mana, you can't use your mobility spell, Flash would always be castable. Flash is instantaneous. A regular dash can provide enemy champions with some degree of what you're doing. Camille hookshot, for example, people can see that coming and react to it accordingly. They can't do it so much if you flash directly on top of them. Other champions, meanwhile, can also flash away from you if you don't have it, and then you kind of can't follow, right? If you don't take Ghost, for example, if you're teleport Ignite, and you try to, like, dash onto them, and they just flash away, and it's like, oh, okay, well, the play's over. I can't follow their flash with mine because I don't have it. And if you're playing specific champions, like Vi, for example, not having the range extension on things like Vault Breaker can be a very big deal and a reason to take Flash regardless. As a result of all this, I find replacing Flash to be a relatively risky play. It can pay off, certainly, but it generally isn't worth it unless you're playing a very specific champion. For example, Olaf taking Ghost, I think, is a totally defensible choice. So what summoner spells should you be taking? Ultimately, it depends on what you want. Teleport is the objective best in a vacuum. It insulates your laning phase from mistakes, it provides global pressure for your team, and opens up a host of powerful macro plays. In the right player's hands, Teleport can be almost as good at winning a lane as Ignite. Ignite is a good option for lane bullies, especially if they're into another lane bully, but because of Teleport's ability to let you take a bad trade and then just reset and teleport back into lane, there are a lot of times where I've been Ignite and just recalled and teleported back into lane, and I'm like, great, so I'm back, full health, you are down your Ignite, and you don't have teleport. And then they just lose the lane until Ignite comes back up because of the macro advantage that the teleport set up. However, I do think there are some players who want to win the game via micro interactions versus macro plays, and I think Ignite is much better in those circumstances, especially if you think the enemy top laner is going to be fighting you 24/7. The power that Ignite grants is undeniable. I also think Ignite is just less good for Grievous Wounds applications. Like, Grievous Wounds items are 800 gold, you guys. They don't take up one of your precious summoner spell slots. You have 6 item slots and 2 summoner spells. Which one makes the most sense to get Grievous Wounds out of, you know? I don't think it's worth taking Ignite just because you're into an Aatrox top. Finally, Ghost is a situational tool. I think some champions love it, like Darius, but others will get 0 value from it. So I don't think it's just blind pickable in a majority of circumstances. I think you need to be playing one of a very limited cadre of champions in order to actually get some degree of value from Ghost. So it's hard to say that this is something that I would recommend you just taking into the top lane, no matter what champion you're playing. I also think that depending on the matchup, Teleport is still worth it, and you may not want to give up on your Flash because of how powerful Flash can be. Certainly there are some champions that can say, I don't need TP as long as I have Ghost. There's some champions who can say, I don't need Flash as long as I have Ghost, but I think it's a lot harder to justify its slot in the top lane specifically. As a result, my go-to would always be Teleport and Flash, and I would almost never sub out Flash for one of the others if I could help it, but I think the other two options have sort of proven their merit over an extended period of time, and I think they are pickable if you are doing so with a plan outside of just, yeah, me unga bunga top lane, me fight all the time. But that's my thoughts on this, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts of it down in the description below. If you're a Teleport truther, if you're an Ignite lover, or if you're a Ghost aficionado, let me know down in the comment section below and what you've been building on your own top lane champions. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all later.